table and we could just sit around and talk instead here. I don't know. So maybe given it's going to be such a small crowd, maybe we'll figure out who's in the room and see who's here. So I don't know. Do I need a microphone? Probably not at the moment. We'll see. Introduction, quick. So I'm Dave Gruber. I work for a company called Black Duck Software. You may not know who they are, but you might know who Ohloh is, because we're the stewards of a site called Ohloh.net. And what goes along with that is we have a lot of data about the world of open source. And part of our commercial business, we amass this huge knowledge base about all the data for projects in the open source world, somewhat in the round of 650,000 projects or so, of which 230 or so are Eclipse projects. And we analyze that data on a regular basis, and we run statistics and metrics and things about the projects. And so part of that is we often stumble across some interesting insights, just in general, about what's going on in the community and in the business. And we make all that publicly available to you guys. So maybe we'll start out. So my role there is to focus on developer programs. So what that means is I try to take the data that we have and deliver it with value to the community, and for the most part in a free community effort. So most of our developer-related activities are all free, including everything that we do in Ohloh. It's completely non-commercial, and that's sort of a give back to the community at large. So what we're going to talk about today is some rolled up information about the Eclipse community, and so given it's such a small audience, so maybe to start that out, like, are all of you project leaders, project managers of Eclipse projects at some level? Some yay, some no. So yeah, so what project?
Project EMF reflector.
Yes.
Refactoring of EMF-based models.
Yep, great. And you nodded, but you didn't. So what's your project?
Not really Eclipse, but it's OpenCom. It's in the scientific area for mass spectrometry. And I'm forcing to found in science industry working group in the Eclipse area. Nice.
And a couple other people nodded yes. Beck. Yeah. Any of you guys project leaders as well? Yes? Great. Yes. Anybody else? No other project leaders? Okay. All right. Well, let's take a look here. So we have a very short amount of time, so I'm going to try to go through three things. One is a little insight about the stack up of the Eclipse projects and how do they look from both contributors and commits standpoint. And then we're going to take a look at Ohloh itself to show you what you have as a tool to use, because all this data we're trying to make public and available to you guys, which we do today, but we have more to give. And then the last part of the conversation is I want to hear back from you based on what I show you. Is there more that you would like to have that would be helpful to you to run your projects? Because we try to present what we have in as useful a way, and we talk to people all the time, but I try to use these forums sometimes to get a little feedback to say, what else would you like? Because it's a free service, and if you ask, then we'll deliver, and I'll show you why in a couple minutes here. So, yep, that's what we're discussing. So, starting out, so we run some statistics like this, where we can do some cool things, where we sort of stack up the world of Eclipse. And I only showed the top 24 projects or so here initially that shows kind of what's happening in the world of Eclipse from a contribution standpoint. And so what this chart represents is for these individual projects over the last 12-month period, what the contributor base looks like. And so you can see sort of at max, it's only between 35 and 40 contributors that are actually submitting code into the individual projects. And no surprises on some of these things. The Eclipse platform, no surprise, is sort of where the biggest effort is going. But the variance between sort of the top 24 is not very much, between sort of 3 to 5 people versus 35 people in some of the larger projects. The Burt Project, sometimes I'm surprised at how much effort goes into the Burt Project overall. There's a consistent, and as you track that back through time, you see that Burt has consumed a lot. Some of the more popular projects like Eclipse Link, where there's a lot of pieces and parts going on, has amassed a fairly large base. And then projects that used to be like really, like Hudson was a project that had a ton of people that were focused on it for a while, but more recently sort of has dropped off and as people are focusing in other places. So it's interesting, you sort of watch projects grow and shrink over time. I don't know how meaningful this data is like for your project or your project, so whether you care about what's going on in the rest of the Eclipse world along the way, but partly what we're going to be able to do is roll things up at the foundation level for a couple of reasons. One is to help the foundation continue to promote its effectiveness and adoption and participation, but also so you guys can get some sense from one project to another where you guys sit. If you look at all-time totals, so this is sort of a longer view, that was 12 months. From the beginning of time, this is the contributor totals overall. And I mentioned Hudson earlier. You see Hudson overall has had a pretty significant contributor base over time, even though it's sort of slowed down a little bit in the last 12 months. Again, Eclipse platform, no surprise to have that be such a big effort as well. And these positions sort of, as I analyze this over time, these positions move around from time to time. I don't know if you're on a project that's over here, I don't know if you go, yay, that my project's awesome, it's rocking, it's bigger and better and better, yes?
The Hudson is on the Eclipse Hudson or Hudson itself?
The Eclipse Hudson. Yeah, that's the Eclipse.
Hudson modeling and Eclipse?
Yes,
Okay.
Hudson modeling. And so I don't know, how, like when you move up a rank, do you care? Like, would you know that you're now the number 3 project in the Eclipse community, or you've moved down 2 slots and now you went from number 6 to number 8? So we have all this data, and so we're talking to the guys at the actual Eclipse Foundation now about how much of that they want to expose and how competitive you guys want to be from project to project. Or not, or we run this stuff once a month and send it out, and you guys can sort of keep track from there. So contributors in the past 12 months, so the previous one was contributions, this is actual contributors over the last 12 months. So because Ohloh is a code scanning engine and it scans and counts who contributed and how many lines of code were contributed, we track both commits, lines of code, and the actual contributors as well. And so you sort of see, you get a little different balances. And maybe I'll overlay some of this data for you guys later too, so you can do your own analysis. By the way, all this data is available through APIs as well in Ohloh if you want it. You can have it and just use the data separate from Ohloh. We just licensed all the data in Ohloh under Creative Commons, so you can literally just like suck the data out of Ohloh and sort of do what you want with it as well. As you look at 30 days, sort of gives you sort of all-time, 12 months, 30 days. I should overlay these so it's a little clearer, but you sort of catch the what's hot right now and where people are spending a lot of investment and a lot of time today. And you can see the numbers are a little lower, but the patterns are generally the same for what projects are super important and hot at any given time. And this is the actual commit rates. So this is the number of physical commits separate from the committers over the last 12 months. As well. And then, of course, you see like a spike period in the release train, right, where we're sort of in the middle of the last 12 months in the April-May timeframe. There was a lot of heavy committing going on as we prepared for the release train, and then things sort of wind down following that for a little bit. So it's interesting to sort of track the flow of the release cycle over time for projects as well.
Why is the STEM project listed 2 times?
Sorry, which project?
Why is the spatial temporal epidemiological model listed 2 times?
Did I list it twice? Because I duplicated it on my Excel spreadsheet when I generated the chart. Sorry, that's all. I thought I removed that. I pulled it out of the other. I duplicated that line somewhere in the way and I left it in there. Yes, for no other reason than that. So you can get at most of this data now through this new feature. So if you've not been to Ohloh before, this is what Ohloh looks like on the homepage. But we just added this new thing called organizations, and this is where we're going to start to roll all this stuff up. It's a fairly new feature, so we're just trying to decide what to give you guys, and there's a way to submit input as far as what you want too. So we run in 2-week agile releases for this thing, so we'd like to know kind of what you like and what you don't, so we can keep giving you more and more stuff. Basically what you're going to be able to do is you'll be able to see everything that's going on for any organization, and you can see we're started to load up the major foundations, and then there's a lot of other sort of pieces and parts of organizations that are going to show up here as well. Government and education organizations and things you'll see appear too. So in addition to formal organized foundations like Eclipse and Apache and some of the others, you'll see a whole lot of other orgs and things. What we want this to be is a way for the foundations to help sort of promote momentum. It's like, so all right, so our projects are growing, our committer bases are growing. I went to a session earlier on the future of Eclipse, and he was sort of talking about the future of the community and the fact that the number of lines maintained per committer has been going up at a little bit of an alarming rate to some extent, where the Eclipse Foundation needs to attract more committers. And so we want to help use this tool to promote what's going on in the Eclipse Foundation as well to a broader audience. But basically what we'll do is in this function, we're going to roll up sort of the start, and we're still loading the data. I was hoping it would be ready by today. We just released the feature today. It's not quite finished. We only have 176 of the projects loaded in of the 228 or so I think that there actually are. But what we'll have is we'll have a total roll-up of all the projects, all the code, how many contributors are actively participating within the Eclipse Foundation as well. You'll also, for each org, be able to see how many of the contributors, who's working for-profit versus nonprofits. And of course, the Eclipse Foundation has a heavily weighted for-profit contribution side versus some of the other foundations that are more heavily suited for the nonprofits. We're going to stack rank the most active projects that are here, and we'll track sort of commits and committers based on that. There's also, these two pieces of data, frankly, are less useful. Currently, we do have people click on things that they use, and we also have community ratings, which I actually, as I look at this, I think I'm going to probably move over those to the right and move those to the left. But you'll be able to scroll down, you'll be able to see the stack ranked top projects that are listed, and as well stack rank the top contributors. Like as project managers, like I see that in most cases the top contributors is the project leader. Are you the top contributor to your project as well? Sorry?
I'm the only one.
Oh, they're the only one. Well, it's all right. So you have it all. Great. But for the most part, the project managers tend to be the top contributors for the project because they're checking code in and out. But for some of the larger projects, you get to see stack ranks of sort of who the most important people are. But what's cool about this is it's actually stacked up against the whole Eclipse Foundation. It's not just, you can get that for your project too already in Ohloh. That's been there for a long time. But what's new about this is, like, these are the top contributors in the entire Eclipse Foundation. And so I think it would be cool if you found yourself that you were on the top 10 list in the Eclipse Foundation. Like, that would be a cool thing to like tell people about. And if you moved up 1 or 2 ranks, that might be something that's worth talking about as well. Anyway, we measure that based on 12 months commits. So I guess you could make a boatload you could game the system a little bit by making a lot of like small commits. But we assume that that's not happening, and we track that as well. So then you can add projects to the foundation here. So if you're involved in other things outside of Eclipse and you want to do org roll-ups as well, you can create your own org and roll up other contributions as well, and then add projects and manage that as well. So although day one, it's actually in beta, you have to just email us and say, I need to set up an organization, but soon that'll be self-service, and you just go in and create your stuff here. Contributors, so this is sort of a little bit of a turn here in conversation. So that's the org roll-up thing. So of the other project leaders in the room, how many people are on your project? Do you have a lot of people on your project?
1.
Joe, just one for you too?
Yeah.
1 and 1, and how about yours? 5? Yeah, okay. So, and so you know everybody, well, so you guys obviously know everybody on your project. Yeah, okay. And you have 5, so do you know everybody on your project as well? Well, yeah, okay. So some of the projects that are larger, people don't know everybody on their projects. And so one of the things that people tell me that they use Ohloh for often is to watch the newest contributors on the projects. So here's the Eclipse Platform project, for instance, big project, right? The project leaders don't know everybody on the project. People do show up. So I just sorted by the newest contributors. So here's a person who contributed for the first time 5 days ago on the project. And these people show up on your projects from time to time. And so what you want to look out for is people that all of a sudden start to emerge as very active contributors on your project. And so here's a couple of people who, this person all of a sudden has committed 66 times in the last 4 months. Fairly new contributor, got very active very, very quickly. This person as well, release engineer, got involved in the Eclipse project and also started fairly actively contributing over the last period. If you drill down on these people, you can sort of say, all right, where did these people come from? And so here's Thon, while a new contributor to the Eclipse Foundation project, not new to the Eclipse Foundation, sorry, the plugin project, not a new contributor to Eclipse at all, certainly has done other work in the plugin, and then also works on a number of other projects, was quite active there. So you can start to learn, like, where did these people come from? And if you're the project manager, you see people like this, you want to get to know them. So you reach out to them and say, hey, so you're getting active on the project, let's talk, and engage with those people as top contributors on your team as they sort of grow, versus all the other people, you know, sort of the onesie-twosie people who you might not want to invest any time with. I talked to a guy who runs a project called Salt. It's not an Eclipse project, but it's a cloud management open source project. He just sort of started the project over the course of the last year and went from 7 contributors to over 100 in a very, very short window of time, in like a 3-month period. And so he, every day, was finding new contributors and was trying to figure out, like, who he was supposed to be working with on the team, because the team formed so very quickly. And so he was sort of tracking this very closely every day to see who his most active committers were, and started pulling those people together in different conversations, and sort of formed the most active, dedicated people quickly onto his team, and it allowed him to continue to grow the team very, very quickly. So, good to watch in the early days of your project. Versus this person this is the 66 committers, and while super active on this project, doesn't really have any commit history on other projects that are tracked in this arena. So you should get a little more insight that that's a brand new person there. The Eclipse Foundation, they provide you already some stats. This is right out of the Eclipse site, and so your projects likely show up here as well. So they give you basic commit activity, the top 10 committers, only over the last 3 months, so it's more like what are the most current committers doing, and what's the commit activity sort of tracked like over time. You also get a little bit of information about the org activity too, so here's the breakdown for the project and who the main commercial organizations are that are involved in the project as well. So while they give you some information, and then Ohloh gives you a bunch of other sort of lower level and more longer tail information, the question is, what else do you want as project managers to help you gain more insights as far as analytics go? How can we help build better tools for you, or to build tools instead of just mostly what we've done today and mostly what Wayne does on your behalf in the Eclipse Foundation as well, is just gives you current stats on stuff, but doesn't give you really any tools to do anything with that for beyond just sort of keeping track of what's here. We'll make the last 5 minutes a little interactive here. So what's useful that Wayne gives you here? What seems useful in the Ohloh stuff that's there? And do you wish you had other things as you're managing your projects to keep up on what's going on in your teams? And I don't know if you guys have managed larger projects in the past. If it's just you and it's your project and you're the leader, you're going to say, I know everything about what I'm doing. What do I need to know? But if you've managed other sort of larger projects, maybe the gentleman in the back that has 5 people, I don't know, that you want to track things at a different level. So any ideas? Are there any things that you wish you had? So what we have the ability to do is analyze what people are doing and what's happening in the code bases. We're also beginning to pull together some things like, what's the social conversation going on about your projects in places like Stack Overflow and other things, and we're going to try to tie that in too, so you can get a flavor for who's talking about your projects as well, who's asking questions, who's answering questions about your projects. We're trying to pull together as much community insight as we can, so that you're not chasing that information on your own, and trying to make that as helpful as possible. We're also have an active project going on now to do bug-based analytics too, to sort of give you some stats on how quickly your bugs are being resolved and tie all that together. One little data point on that, all this data is public, so it also gets accessed by all the people who use the software that you create. And so the more metrics we can provide that are useful not only for you as project leaders, but also for the consumers of the open source software that you're building, the easier it will be for those people to make decisions about the use of that software along the way. So we're trying to serve two audiences with this, both the creators of the open source software, you guys, but also the downstream consumers of that as well. Any thoughts as far as the additional information that you'd like to see beyond what's here? Ideas? Around people, around code? Do you have everything you need around code? I got asked in the hallway a bunch of, so I'll throw out some things. So these are just related things, but not dead on. So a guy just stopped me in the hall and said, hey, my organization has been a heavy Java organization to date, but we think that Python might be the technology that we need to start doing more and more in, because there seems like a lot of people walking around here who are talking about Python as an important language, yet I really liked Ruby, but Java still is a mainstay. What should I do? Like, where are the trends and where are the patterns going as far as what developers are using most in the world of open source? So you get interesting sort of questions as far as people trying to make decisions as far as, if I have two choices on technologies to use out of open source code, should I use a Java-based project? Will I use a Python-based project? Will I use a Ruby-based project? Depending on what the resources people have in their own organizations. And so they're trying to see what the directional trends are in the open source community. And while, of course, the Eclipse world is built on the Java platform, so there's lots of talk about what else I should be paying attention to in the public arena as well. Any other thoughts? Doesn't spur any other additional stuff, huh? Okay. Well, that's it then. So we only had a teeny bit of time, but that's a short little insight. There's going to be a pile more charts, stats, data, and things available to you about. This was about orgs, mostly about Eclipse, but your individual projects. You have a pile of data on Ohloh for your individual projects. If you have new projects that you want to put on Ohloh outside the Eclipse Foundation, all you need to do is type in the name of your project and your source code location, and Ohloh immediately starts crawling and running all these statistical analysis on your projects and counting, and it will be here as well. So again, it's a great community resource to give you some insights into your stuff. All right. Thanks for spending the 25 minutes or so with me. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks.